So welcome everyone to the Unilock 2020 UTech Virtual Specifier Education Series. My name is Alex Bartolo. I'll be the host and moderator for today. We have Dave Robbins as well. He's from our team Ontario, and then Eugene from the US in case we have any US related questions. So to start things off, I'm just going to have a quick presentation introduction from the Ontario Commercial Sales Manager, Dave Laurie. He's going to go over a brief overview of what Unilock does.
Hello, my name is Dave Laurie, Sales Manager, Commercial Sales, Unilock Canada. I began at Unilock in 1997 during Unilock's 25th year in business. This year, Unilock is celebrating its 50th year in business. Unilock began with one paver named Unistone, available in a single color. We now have a 170-page catalog featuring a large variety of products. When I began at Unilock, I was one of 5 sales reps in Canada. We now have 18 sales reps, including our newly added Quebec business operation. Our sales have grown significantly, and the size and number of production plants have also increased, both here in Canada as well in the US, centered around the Great Lakes. Unilock began with commercial projects in 1972 with the Unistone, then grew tremendously in the residential marketplace, becoming a significantly well-marketed household product name for many years. Approximately 20 years ago, Unilock began to renew our focus on the commercial world of spec build projects. Sales rep like myself in Ontario, as well in New York and Chicago, moved from an all-round sales rep role looking after both residential and commercial business to a focus on commercial work only. With a high level of focus on commercial work, the emphasis was on getting Unilock specified by architects, landscape architects, and engineers. This led to a significant focus on doing lunch and learn presentations to this audience, working hard to become the most sought after company for commercial projects, product supply for pavements and retaining walls. Like the lunch and learns that Unilock sales reps have presented for many years now, the company's long-term objective is to provide the most current information to ensure all the best practices are being followed in both the design and construction of the systems that Unilock products are used within. Unilock understands that not only do our products need to be of the highest quality, but the partnership between our firm and yours in working towards high-quality installations is of the utmost importance. We are proud to bring to all of you our 2022 UTech Virtual Specifier Education Series. Thank you.
So this is part 3 of our education series, and it covers the topic of roof decks, unit paving slab design and construction best practices. OAA and OALA credit education hours are available. However, for those joining from the US, it is not a LACES or AIA accredited presentation. PO continuing education learning hours are available for members. A letter can be provided from Unilock to each attendee confirming their attendance at the seminars, and letters will be distributed within a week of today's presentation. So I'm going to go over a brief overview on Unilock. So we source local materials to manufacture our products, helping the communities we operate in. We manufacture quality products by producing unit paving and wall blocks with precise dimensional tolerances, low absorption rates, and high compressive strength. All of our products meet, but more often exceed industry standards. Unilock is a trendsetter and drives the union paving and retaining wall industry with new and innovative products. We have a large number of commercial team professionals across all our Unilock locations in Canada and the US ready to assist you. In addition to our commercial team, we have over 65 territory managers serving contractors and dealers in your area. Locally, we have dedicated commercial sales teams serving the design community and contractors with a focus in the Greater Toronto area. We also have 4 territory managers looking after the outlying areas of Southern Ontario, from the Golden Horseshoe to Ottawa region and north to Georgian Bay. We also have 3 project administrators to support our Unilock commercial team. Unilock was the first to manufacture a concrete unit paving in North America and founded by Ed Bryant. The Ed Bryant family are still decision makers today, and they continue to guide the company and make Unilock successful. We are a Canadian company with our first operation beginning in Barrie, and have since expanded our operations to Ayr, Gormley, Pickering, and Georgetown. We also have U.S. locations in Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Milwaukee, and New York. Unilock has 18 manufacturing facilities and growing across 13 locations in the U.S. So here's today's seminar outline. Questions will be taken during the using the question and answer function on the right side of your screen. Questions will be addressed following Dave Robbins' recorded segment, which is coming up. So our speaker today is Dave Robbins. David has been with Unilock for 7 years, and he has 20 years of experience in the construction and environmental science industry. He is also a certified technical representative with Construction Specification Canada. So now we're going to begin our pre-recorded session. As I mentioned, we'll have questions at the end, and I will begin it now. Please just give me a moment.
Welcome to Construction Best Practices, Roof Deck Unit Paving. I'll be your host, David Robbins. Thank you for joining us. The traditional roof deck was utilitarian in nature, essentially a ballast roof. These have now become programmed, environmentally conscious spaces for healthier lifestyles. 5 common roof decks we see are ballast or single ply, roof garden, pedestal roof decks, green roofs or cool roofs, and finally outdoor amenity spaces. What we're looking at here is a ballast or single ply roof. It's the simplest solution, basically a roof membrane covered with clear gravel as weight to prevent wind uplift. Obviously, this is a simple and functional approach, not intended for any kind of amenity space, does not provide any particular environmental advantage. At most, other than this, you may see an inexpensive path system made of thin pavers around any kind of HVAC equipment or davit arm setup, essentially for maintenance personnel. Next is the roof garden. We don't see this very often, but it's an excellent use of space that has been gaining popularity when the budget will allow it. Most notably, this has been proposed over the rail corridor near Union Station for future development, or seen here at Ryerson University Urban Farm in Toronto. Everyone is likely aware that any building in the city of Toronto, over 2,000 square meters of total floor area, requires that 20 to 60% of the available roof space be made up of a green or cool roof, depending on the total floor area. So we are obviously seeing many more of this type of roof, either totally green or in a combination of green roof and amenity space. Using green roofs provide many ecological benefits, such as reduced energy consumption for heating and cooling, which translates into less tax on this equipment, which ultimately results in saved dollars. You can also use them for stormwater retention, for irrigation of the gardens themselves, or perhaps even as gray water. Heat island mitigation, which is a huge topic, which comes up in the Toronto Green Standard all the time. But the downside is a lot of these solely green or garden roofs lack usable space or activity areas for users. That brings us to amenity space. For apartment buildings, for the example in Toronto, the city of Toronto, 4 square meters of amenity space must be provided per dwelling unit, with the potential of 25% of that being as a roof deck amenity space. And with every square meter in most cities being extremely valuable, It's important to make the most of it. The reemergence of outdoor spaces has become a highly desired amenity. It maximizes otherwise unused space, provides an activity space during seasonal months, and it creates an opportunity for attracting new tenants. In a way, the property balanced combination of extensive garden, pedestal roof deck, and garden roofs is essentially an outdoor amenity space. It's the best of everything. We at Unilock want to capitalize on that. We're an innovative and evolving company. Large format pavers, modular block seat walls and planter walls, natural stone and porcelain tile. Let's look at a few ways Unilock can help. We can see here 𝐦𝐨𝐷𝐬 on the top of the Lowe's building in Chicago, overlooking the city skyline. Here's a great example of a green roof. The use of succulents, grasses, or hardy flowers will form an excellent area to cool and insulate the building. Not to mention, it's much nicer to look at from an office window. Paver maintenance paths can be seen around the entire area. This is an excellent use of space at 1 York in Toronto. Intricate design of 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐞 cut into a field of 𝐦𝐨𝐷𝐬. This is a great example of what could not be achieved with pedestals alone. 1 York seen here was installed on an HPB buildup. This elevated roof deck in Chicago is 𝐦𝐨𝐷𝐬, and this would be more typical of an install on pedestals. In order for the pedestal to pick up the corners of each paver, you would need to be looking at either a stacked or running bond laying pattern like you see here. Intricate detail like this job at 225 Davisville, which was installed on granular, would be extremely difficult on pedestals. Probably all recognize this site. It's obviously Toronto City Hall. It's an excellent amenity space installed on granular with the combination of a rooftop garden. Now we can discuss some install options for elevated and on-grade roof decks. We're going to explore some of the characteristics of each install, and then we're going to dive into each one in more depth. First up, we'll talk about slabs on pedestals. Raising slabs over the membrane consists of a variety of methods and products. The nature of the elevated install gives property owners access to the roof surface for ease of maintenance. Without the granular buildup for ballast or paver bedding, the weight is greatly reduced. The pedestals do not come cheap. They can range anywhere from $6 to $15 per unit. Now, depending on the heights and the method. And finally, as we discussed with pedestals, you are somewhat restricted to either large slabs or rectangles, squares, and limited laying patterns. This is without any added investment in base tiles on the pedestals. Slabs on granular or insulation. Honestly, this is what I see most often for roof deck installs. As a matter of fact, even when pedestals have been specified, and if the roof will allow it, value engineering tends to take over and the change is made to granular. And that's simply just to take advantage of the price difference. The downside is generally when it comes to maintenance. So having to pull up the pavers, dig out the granular just to get to a leaking membrane or a clogged drain. This can be the biggest downside. Other than that, it could be more difficult to get the stone up to the site, as well as the weight difference on the roof. But other than that, we still see this more often than pavers over a concrete deck. As you might guess, this method is generally reserved for on-grade paving, either over a slab or over an underground parking structure. I tend to see this, obviously, condo driveways, parking areas is where we see this the most. So now we'll take a look at pedestals. We're going to look at some different pedestal styles, some of the different features, and some of the install methods used for pedestals. Here's a cross section of a typical pedestal install using screw jack pedestals. I definitely recommend you take a look at some of these cross sections on our website, unilock.com. Under the resource section, there's a lot of great detail there. Here's a better look at how the screw jack pedestals actually operate. So essentially, screw to one way to move the pedestal up in height and screw it the other way to move it down. You can also see you can adjust the slope and the grade on the top and bottom of the pedestal. Also, here is some great information on how to plan out your pedestals and where they should go for each style of paver. So when you come across the 60 by 60 centimeter typical square paver that you see most often on pedestal projects, one pedestal per corner is more than enough. It will work. When you get into some of the larger rectangles, some of the larger pavers, then a middle pedestal should also be considered. And that's just obviously to pick up the point load. When using a larger rectangle, you could also consider a running bond situation or laying pattern and using a pedestal in the middle of paver so that it picks up the corner of the adjacent paver. This is the new Unilock screw jack pedestal system. The wide bases offer support, and with the weight of pavers on top, they are very stable on any elevated roof deck application. Depending on the project, we can offer pedestals from either 30 millimeters all the way up to 220 millimeters. I do advise that you contact your Unilock rep as some of the sizes are not stocked and require some lead time to bring in. Here we can see the pedestal assembly. The pedestals come complete with gap spacers, which create a 3 millimeter joint between each paver. This may or may not be required depending on the paver you have decided on using. Some pavers, such as porcelain tile, do not have intrinsic spacer bars, while other precast pavers do. Best thing to do is to contact a Unilock rep that can walk you through the process. As mentioned, the screw system is used to increase the height of the pedestal, and a height coupler can also be incorporated to provide increased height if needed. A rubber shim can be incorporated to offer noise reduction, and a self-leveling head reduces the surface slope to 7%. These are some of the technical specifications for our new Unilock pedestal. The material is recycled polypropylene. The height range is between 30 and 420 millimeters. The strength of each pedestal can be listed here at 2,360 pounds for the T series, or the M series can be listed at 3,372 pounds. The spacer gap is 3 millimeters, as we previously mentioned. It has good resistance to molds, algae, and good resistance to alkali or bitumen. Full technical specifications can be available by contacting your Unilock rep. These are some of the advantages of the pedestal system. Obviously, since they are raised and spaced without any joint compound, water is allowed to easily pass through the joints and reach the roof drains. Again, given the fact that the pedestals raise the platform above the roof membrane, this can create an air gap, allowing for circulation, which in turn allows for durability and longevity of the membrane. As an added benefit of the platform, reduced exposure to UV rays can be taken advantage of. The void space created by elevating the platform can facilitate in any services that need to be run along the roof deck, such as gas, electrical gas, or water. Finally, the pedestals provide a low weight and level surface that can be used for an amenity space, which adds significant value for the tenant and ultimately the owner.
I have prepared a short demonstration video, which I will play now.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching this introduction and demonstration of the new Unilock pedestal system. We are excited to expand our elevated roof deck system offering in 2022. With the addition of this high-quality screw jack pedestal system, combined with our vast selection of concrete paving slabs, porcelain, and natural stone, we aim to make Unilock your one-stop shop for paving on elevated roof decks. I hope you enjoy. To get things started, here's just a brief overview of what we'll be looking at today. We'll start by introducing our new pedestal sample box and its contents. Secondly, I'll explain how pedestals are assembled and how they work. I'll show you some different applications. I'll then break down a couple of design considerations for working with pedestals. We'll have a look at some of our Unilock slabs on pedestals. Then we'll discuss the specific advantages to using the Unilock pedestal system. And finally, we'll touch briefly on special order items. Let's get started. I understand that many of us are not super familiar with pedestal systems. In comparison to other elevated roof deck install methods, this is still a relatively new approach. Our goal is to make specifying our system as easy as possible. And to that end, we've created this sample box, which contains all the standard components of the Unilock pedestal system. These will be available to any specifier, contractor, or owner who may want a hands-on demonstration of the system. Simply contact our office or your Unilock sales rep to set up a time and delivery. We can review in person or even virtually, whatever works for you. Okay, let's see what we have. Each sample box has an inventory of components on the side with names and descriptions. Inside the box, you'll have one of each size pedestal, a 10-centimeter coupler. It'll come with a self-leveling head, rubber shim, some cross spacers, as well as some 3 and 5 millimeter spacers, and a rubber mat, which provides protection over a waterproof membrane. We're now going to take just a closer look at what the parts make up the system. Each pedestal consists of a base, a nut, and screw. The nut goes onto the screw like so, and then fits into the base. We have 4 different sizes: 35 to 45 millimeter, 45 to 70 millimeter, 70 to 120 millimeter, and 120 to 220 millimeters. You can then incorporate a 10 millimeter or 10 centimeter rather height coupler to each one. You can add a max of 2 to create a 420 millimeter height. Spacers can be attached to the top using a cross for stack bond applications, or the 3 to 5 millimeter spacers can be attached individually when you're using a running bond or if you're incorporating a center pedestal. You can also apply a rubber shim to the top of the pedestal, like so, and then the cross spacer will fit in and keep it tight. The shim is about 1.5 millimeters, and it serves 2 purposes. One, it provides sound suppression to guard against chattering of the tiles as they're being walked across. It also provides a height difference compensation from slab to slab in case there's any height tolerance issues. The self-leveling head you can use to automatically compensate for any slope up to 7 degrees. The biggest advantage is when terrace bases are sloped and you may need to achieve a flat surface. The self-leveling height element adds about 16 millimeters in height and will compensate for any kind of difference in height. It will clip right onto the top of the pedestal, like so. The edge spacer clip used, we also have the edge spacer clip used to have a gap between the terrace and surface and border wall. The distance clip allows you to make a safe separation between the wall and the terrace. The clip can then be adjusted between 4 and 12 millimeters. The clip fits onto the top of the pedestal and will butt up against any kind of border or parapet wall. So for applications, pedestals are useful when a level terrace platform is trying to be achieved over a sloped roof. And generally, it's a question of weight. Using pedestals to support a platform on an elevated roof deck is substantially lighter than a traditional build-up, with the added advantage of creating a void space to run any kind of services needed to power or supply the amenity space. Having this void space also makes accessing and maintaining the roof membrane, drainage, or services exceedingly more convenient versus a traditional granular build-up. We believe there are significant advantages to choosing Unilock pedestals for your project, and we want to make it as easy as possible for you. There are a number of steps that we've taken in order to help you design with our system and the ability, and additionally, to keep them on the project. We have an engineering team that can use your drawings to create a layout plan, showing pedestal placement and layout around border walls, as well as provide a quantity takeoff to help with budgeting. The availability of our pedestals is pretty great in Ontario. We stock quite a vast assortment, and this will avoid any kind of delays on site with lead times coming in from either the US or overseas. And lastly, we have a very competitive pricing. We have reviewed the pricing for comparable pedestals in the market, and Unilock pedestals provide a distinct advantage. At the end of the day, you should choose your pedestals for the same reason you choose our pavers and walls, the support and the value that we provide. You can be confident that when you involve Unilock, you will have the most dedicated and experienced team on your side. Here are some of the design considerations that we think you should pay attention to. The design we provide for the pedestal layout is one of the best I've seen. Having this available for your tender package will ensure a more accurate budget and will firm up bid submissions. As we all know, things change between the design phase and the construction phase, and for that reason, we recommend insisting on an on-site takeoff to ensure accuracy when ordering the right size pedestals and components. When compensating for weight, it's important that you incorporate planters, heavy design features, etc. into your layout plan. We can design for most anything using larger pedestals or center pedestals, for example, but generally the slab is going to be the weakest point, so reinforcing them is going to be key. We can use center pedestals or trays for thinner materials, and we also offer a kerf system for wind uplift. This consists of cutting a kerf into the side of the paver and incorporating a clip system to keep them in place. Okay, now I thought we'd take the opportunity to look at some Unilock product on top of the pedestals. Here we have 𝐸 in a 600 by 600. It's a 5 centimeter thickness, and I have it installed on our 30 to 45 millimeter pedestals with the self-leveling head. Back here we have our 𝐸 in a 540 by 900. This is a 6 centimeter thickness, and we have it installed on our 70 to 120 millimeter pedestals with two 10 centimeter couplers. We've also incorporated a center pedestal on each side just to pick up the weight from the center of the slab. Same goes with our Beacon Hill Smooth. This is available in a 540 by 900 6 centimeter slab. We've introduced Granite Mist, which is a brand new color for this year, and we've also incorporated one coupler on our 70 to 120 millimeter pedestal, raising it up just a little bit higher, and we've also incorporated the center pedestal to pick up the added weight. This is Revella. Revella was a new product for 2021, also available 540 by 900 6 centimeter slab. We've actually taken our traditional series finish, which is the exposed aggregate, and applied a shot blast treatment to it, which adds a little bit more depth and a little bit more texture. A very interesting looking paver. We have that installed on the 70 to 120 as well. This is a special order product called Skyline. We have it here made with an Umbriano finish in Winter Marvel. It's a 600 by 600 5 centimeter slab, and we have it installed on our 45 to 70 millimeter pedestal. Finally, to round it out, we have our porcelain tile. This happens to be Biola Bianca, but talk to your sales rep. We have a wide variety of porcelain in different sizes and colors to match any job. And this is, again, installed on our 30 to 45 millimeter pedestal. Okay, I just wanted to wrap things up by briefly mentioning a few special order items that we have access to. If you need to get a little bit higher than the standard series, we can access a max series pedestal that can get a little bit higher. It's got a little bit of a wider base to to provide a little bit more of a heavy-duty application. If wind uplift is a concern, we have a clip and kerf system that can be applied to the pedestal and the paver to keep it in place. Finally, we have some fixed options, 3, 8, 10, and 16 millimeter that can be stacked 3 at a time to create a level platform. I hope you found that informative. Thanks very much.
Okay, now let's get back to looking at more installation methods for pavers on an elevated roof deck.
For slabs on insulation, we would definitely be looking at this type of setup if the weight restrictions will not allow for granular and pedestals don't work for your budget. This is a great weight reduction option. It's a buildup with insulation and then a normal bedding layer of sand or high performance bedding with the pavers. Granular over concrete. This is most common, granular buildup with a roof drain. What's most important is the drainage, making sure that the water gets to that slab drain. The use of free draining gravel is probably your best option here. A high performance bedding is between 4 and 6 millimeter angular chip gravel, free of fines, that will allow the water to flow freely through the joints and reach the drain below. Lastly, we have pavers on a concrete deck. So this is the most common setup we see for pavers at grade on concrete. Basically, you have your bi-level drain with a sand setting bed and pavers over concrete. This section will be about design considerations. Some design considerations for elevated roof decks will certainly contain some environmental or local requirements. For instance, in the city of Toronto, the Toronto Green Standard dictates that 50% of the elevated roof deck needs to be either green roof or a combination of green and cool roof. A cool roof will more often than not involve some high albedo paving. These pavers are pavers which are highly reflective and meet at least 29 on the SRI chart. The goals of your project will help you determine the right method for install, whether it be pedestals or on granular. If, for instance, you want an elaborate design with various size pavers with cuts, then obviously I would steer you towards a granular base approach. Ultimately, budget will drive most of the decisions, obviously. Either way, I invite you to reach out to your Unilock rep. We can definitely steer you in the right direction or help you find the right solution to your elevator roof deck issues. Finally, I wanted to share some common problems that I run into with on-grade roof slab installs. First among these concerns is differential settlement. When paving over an underground parking garage or any concrete structure, we see issues arise from areas where you may have two slabs meeting, or where the paving on the slab changes from on concrete to a section on granular. This photo here happens to be where the slabs from two parking garages are at two different heights. You can see a clear line where the settlement is creating some separation in the paving joints. This leads to rocking, which leads to damage, and once all the jointing material has been pumped out, the pavers don't stand a chance. This photo of a job in Toronto clearly shows you how important the roles of shape and laying pattern can play in the success of any platform. The area that was laid in a running bond consisting of square pavers, over the years of torque from turning tires and the force of stopping and starting vehicular loads, have contributed to the paver joints opening up. And once that happens, the jointing material is allowed to be evacuated, and that's just going to lead to ultimate failure. That's definitely not going to get any better. Conversely, you can definitely see how the herringbone pattern is holding up quite well. Lastly, drainage. Obviously, this is the same job as the previous slide, but when the water has nowhere to go, it will escape wherever it can. In this case, the pavers were installed on limestone screenings. The nature of screenings are such that they create a compact, non-porous surface. Then the hydrostatic pressure of vehicular loads pumps the joint material out, and eventually it leads to overall failure. The takeaway here is never use limestone screenings. Always use a Unilock recommended installation method. Avoid squares, rectangles, and a herringbone are always going to be far superior. We don't all love herringbone patterns all the time, but in this case, it's ultimately a better solution. I haven't come across a lot of the concerns that I've shown you in the last few slides. Overall, the installs are very good, but when they do happen, it can be quite frustrating. And that's why I'm pretty happy to introduce this product that we'll be carrying in 2021. It's a base stabilization grid by a company called 𝐸. The idea behind it is if you can create a stable base, then any paving that you put on it will be able to sustain any kind of vehicular load you come across. This product actually acts kind of like a snowshoe. It disperses the weight. When the soil contained within the grid is subjected to vehicular loads, the grid holds the granular in place, so they have nowhere to go, and therefore resist all displacement, and that means no ruts, pots, or differential settlement.
I will now turn it over to the Iowa team for more information on DriveCell.
This is Phil Perzia from Perzia Geosolutions. I am a geostructural engineer that specializes in reinforced soil structures. In conjunction with Pete Charon, the president of Iowa, I will be discussing DriveCell reinforced soil solutions. The addition of DriveCell within pavement structures maximizes the strength, stiffness, and resilience. To help understand this, we will discuss how pavements fail, how DriveCell works to prevent failures, why this is important, where we can use DriveCell, and the benefits that DriveCell provides. Pavement structures are strong in compression but weak in tension. They can fail in different locations, from different causes and mechanisms, but ultimately they fail in tension. DriveCell stiff geocells strengthen pavement structures by combining the best of both worlds from geogrids and flexible geocells by reinforcing and confining. This results in the maximum strength, stiffness, and most importantly, resilience for flexible pavement structures. DriveCell can be used in the base layer on decent subgrades and directly on weaker subgrades like a snowshoe to reduce the pressure on the subgrade. DriveCell can be added into conventional unreinforced pavement structures to significantly increase their strength and performance. Or you can take advantage of the strength increase by reducing the thickness to reduce the excavation and granulars while maintaining a similar or greater strength when compared to the original unreinforced section. Here is a comparison of the wheel load distribution for a flexible versus rigid pavement. In a flexible pavement, DriveCell maximizes the stiffness to increase the load distribution and maximizes the resilience to increase the durability. Together, these maximize the performance lifespan. Ultimately, this reduces the maintenance costs and minimizes the life cycle costs. For permeable pavement structures, the base and subbase are typically composed of open graded granulars. The design priorities are structural first and then drainage. A rigid and impermeable concrete base layer is a mistake under a flexible and permeable concrete paver's driving surface. The concrete should be replaced with DriveCell. As shown on the very right, 2 layers of DriveCell can be used in pavement structures, one on the base and one on the subgrade to further increase the reinforced strength and minimize the excavation and granulars. The original concrete base for this driveway was replaced with DriveCell. DriveCell can be used on the roofs of parking garages to improve performance, especially at transitions and to reduce the weight of the granulars. Tension cracks typically form at transitions from one type of pavement to another. Installing 2 layers of DriveCell along the transition helps smooth the transition and prevent cracking. Too often, pavements and curbs break up around catch basins. Installing drive cell helps tie this area together to reduce costly repairs. Pavement structures often deform and crack over culverts. Installing drive cell under the culvert helps spread the load and reduce the excavation required. Installing another layer above the culvert in the pavement structure helps prevent deformation and cracking. Drive cell maximizes the long-term performance of pavement structures for maximum benefits. During construction, the excavation and granulars can be reduced. Plus, the installation is quicker and easier. This results in overall time and cost savings. Maximizing the resiliency maximizes the durability. This means more wheel passes, less maintenance, and smooth transitions. Finally, using drive cell has direct and indirect environmental benefits, including reducing export and imported materials, reducing truck traffic and related air and noise pollution, all while reducing the overall carbon footprint. Thank you very much.
That's great, Phil. Thanks very much. We have time for one more new product. We are introducing another exciting new system that will help eliminate displacement and shifting while also improving drainage-associated failures. This is Romex Trasbed, an aggregate binder that can be installed on granular or structural slab to create a strong, stable, and permeable base for any paving platform. I immediately saw the potential for this product in situations where the allowable depth doesn't allow for full granular buildup and setting bed. You'll need less than 6 centimeters of space, plus your paving, to create a strong platform for light-duty vehicular and just over 8 centimeters of space for commercial vehicular. The Romex Trasbed compound can be installed directly on top of your project's insulation or membrane, with recommended depths ranging from 5 centimeters for pedestrian areas to 7 centimeters and above for any vehicular loading of 42 tons. The product can cater to all applications. Installation is easy, efficient, and done in one shot, opposed to the traditional two-step process associated with a typical concrete slab. The Trasbed compound is poured wet and leveled to the correct depth and coverage before the pavers are backed with 3 to 5 millimeters of Romex adhesion elutriant, basically a thin set, and then placed into position, forming a strong wet-to-wet bond for a pull test rating of 2.4 MPa. For context, a traditional masonry rating is about 0.5 MPa. When installed correctly, the Trasbed compound provides a stronger, more durable, and cost-efficient solution to an impervious concrete slab. Romex also provides a comprehensive 10-year system warranty on the Trasbed when used with the elutriant and joint mortar. In addition to the superior strength of Romex Trasbed, the material remains highly water permeable and acts as a drainage mat. Thus, when used in conjunction with Romex permeable jointing mortars, a fully permeable bonded construction can be achieved. This provides viable options for stormwater management and can still contribute to sustainability and environmental objectives in the landscape construction, while still providing a long-lasting, load-bearing, and attractive surface.
Now, to round out our design consideration section, I wanted to jump back onto laying patterns and something we call aspect ratio. Now, herringbone is definitely the best pattern for vehicular applications. I've probably beaten that one to death. It just is. It provides the best possible lockup between pavers. For heavy-duty applications, we also recommend a 3-to-1 ratio between the length of the paver and the height of the paver. This is a relationship we call aspect ratio. Alternatively, for light-duty or residential vehicular situations, we would recommend a 4-to-1 ratio. So if you take a 400 millimeter paver in length, the height of that paver should be 100 millimeters. For pedestrian applications, we're not really concerned with this at all, unless the area could be subject to occasional vehicular from, say, delivery vehicles or perhaps snow removal equipment. So that concludes this section, and before we jump on, let's take some more questions. For the final portion of our presentation, I wanted to review some of the technological advances Unilock has brought to the industry. First up is Ultima. Ultima is a wet cast style concrete that is pretty cool. It enables us to make concrete products that emulate old world products, like clay pavers. This particular picture you're looking at is a side-by-side of Unilock concrete pavers matched up to the existing century-old clay pavers in the Distillery District in Toronto. You can find this type of technology in products like Copthorne, Quartzstone, Richcliffe, and Town Hall. Next up is color fusion. Now, color fusion is a proprietary technology that disperses color randomly using tiny aggregate in the face of the paver on products like Umbriano. This creates a natural, random granite-like appearance that is so distinctly Umbriano. In addition to the interesting colors and finishes we can produce using color fusion, we go one step further by sealing the face of the product. Using the CF90 Easy Clean Sealer, we can factory seal in the paver so that it creates a barrier between any outside organics or staining and the paver itself. Any staining that you do pick up on the paving surface should be easily washed off with a pressure washer. This keeps the paver looking brand new for the life of the product, and is a big reason why it's so popular commercially. I'm now briefly going to run through finishes. Most of our products fit into one of three categories. The first one being classic. Now, this is your traditional style concrete, basically concrete and pigment throughout the paver. A very budget-friendly, durable style of paving. I often get asked what the difference is between these two styles of paving, through mix and something called face mix. This graphic, I feel like, illustrates it better than I can explain it. On the through mix side, you can see the aggregate start to shine through on the face of the product. On the face mix side, that's covered up by a thin coating of concrete, usually about 1/4 inch. This is the same color, but you can drastically see the difference in the face mix side. Enduracolor. Now, this is a two-step manufacturing process that combines a base coarser aggregate for strength and a strong foundation, and then a face mix, 1/4 inch of almost pure cement and tiny aggregate on the face. Now, this helps lock up the face of the paver. It prevents absorption of water or anything else that could harm the paver. It also allows us to do very cool things with color and finish. Finally, elegance. Now, elegance is a wet cast paver. We've already kind of touched on it, but it gives you the idea of what we can do with wet cast and mold technology. We can take examples from real life, whether it be the Distillery District example I showed before, or if it's river stone that we've taken cast mold of and are able to create a stacked stone wall like Rivercrest. I hope you've already heard of 𝐦𝐸, Unilock's facade faced wall. We introduced it a couple of years ago, and since then it's really taken off. Essentially, you have two different sizes of backer blocks, and then a number and assortment of fascia panels that hang off the backer blocks. We've taken the technology a step further and introduced the new modular system. It's going to be available in all the fascia textures and colors that you've become used to with the regular 𝐦𝐸 system. Aside from aesthetics, the real benefit to this system is definitely going to be the savings of time and money. It only consists of 3 lightweight aluminum components that can be lifted onto any roof deck. They go together fairly fast. There's only 3 pieces to the actual system itself. You have the barbecue unit, which houses the grill top, the corner unit, which then ties in the island unit. All this can go together and be cladded in just about 90 minutes. What's truly remarkable about this system is that it only really goes together using 12 screws. You place the two units together, clamp them together, use the self-tapping screws, and you're off to the races. It's also been engineered to minimize cuts. When installing the two units together, you're really only taking up about 8 cuts. Compare that to a traditional system, and the savings are quite evident. Let's take a look. So here you can see they've got a double unit. So you got your grill island with multiple islands together. The guys just self-taps those screws right in, connect all the units together, and start cladding it. Before long, you have a finished product. That concludes our presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. That was great. So before we move on to any questions, I just wanted to remind attendees of our upcoming EDU seminar on engineered walls is February 10th at 1 p.m. So please tune in for that if you're interested. We'll move on to questions. So I have a question here. The first one is, can any size and thickness of paver be used for a roof deck application?
Well, that's really going to come down to what you require. When you're talking about an elevated roof deck and using pedestals, the thinner is going to be probably the better. You're going to use the pedestals to withstand the loads, and you don't want to throw away money on thickness of concrete or thickness of stone if you don't really need to. But essentially, yes, you're going to be limited by weight only.
So I have another question. If pedestals are used, do they have to be mechanically fastened to the roof deck structure?
No, they don't have to be. That will probably be dictated by any kind of wind uplift study that's done. They can be connected. The pedestals themselves will sit on the membrane. The weight of the paver will keep the pedestals in place. But if there's requirement that they be fastened down, then I mentioned in the video, a kerf system can be applied, and that's just a small kerf cut into the side of the paver, and it's mechanically attached to the pedestal.
Great. Looks like we have one last question. Do the joints have to be filled with sand, similar to on-grade applications?
No, they don't. No, actually, that's one of the nice things, that it becomes a permeable system. The water is allowed to pass through the joints and then into your roof drains. So because the pedestals come with a spacer, that fits right onto the top of the pedestal. Pavers butt up against that, and they'll have a common joint width.
Perfect. So those are all the questions for today. If you want to get in contact with us, here's our contact information. Feel free to reach out with any questions on specifications, products, or anything at all. There's a phone number if you want to have a quick chat as well. So thank you everyone for joining today's presentation. That concludes it.
Thanks, everyone.